It's a pleasure to welcome Tema Klausner, president of the World Emunah, to this special panel on resilience. Leyb, IDF reservist, public diplomacy advocate, and global activist for Israel. And we're honored to have Brigadier Lieutenant Colonel Dganit Sanker-Lange, expert in civil resilience and recovery in times of crisis, former head of community and human resources at the National Recovery Directorate, and former Director General of the Ministry of Aliyah and Integration. Welcome, everyone.
Thank you. We're happy to be here.
Thank you for coming to join us during these difficult times. Let's begin with a question about World Emunah. World Emunah has been supporting vulnerable populations for more than 90 years at this point. How does this legacy translate into real-time action during moments that we're in right now, like a national crisis and the aftermath of October 7th?
I'm just going to take 2 seconds to explain the difference between Emunah and World Emunah. Emunah is the organization, the largest religious Zionist social service organization in Israel. World Emunah is the global part of Emunah that is the umbrella organization for all the supporters around the world. And we channel all of our energies into helping Emunah be successful in all the things that it does. First of all, Emunah has been dealing with trauma and people in crisis for 90 years. So this was just a big step up, but the basic building blocks of how to cope are already there. I would say that one of our biggest challenges was that we had no staff. All of a sudden, all our men are not in the daycare center, not in the children's homes, which was really where it was crucial. And what do? Our Bnot Sheirut from the past, our Bnei Sheirut, our Madrichim, they showed up. They just showed up and filled, this is action. They came and they helped until a solution could be worked out. Our largest our largest therapy center is in Sderot. Front lines. Within days, they had to figure out how their therapists, who were completely affected by what was going on, their families, their children, their homes, they're being displaced, but how could they help their people who were completely dependent upon them? And we created a program by which therapists learned how to be therapists within their own crisis. And that model was taught throughout the state of Israel to help the professionals deal with their own trauma while also being effective caregivers. And then, of course, our supporters around the world stepped up in a really incredible and loving and generous way.
And I'm sure that these professionals that you're working with are not only having their own trauma, but they're absorbing lots of the trauma that they're taking in from their surroundings. So thank you for sharing that.
If I can just add to that, one of the biggest challenges was that I know when this all hit, I tried to protect my head from seeing things that I felt I couldn't handle. Our therapists didn't have that choice. When someone is sitting next to you and telling you what they went through or what their daughter went through or what their son is going through, you can't say, you know what, it's too much for me, I can't hear it. They had to learn how to be able to absorb it without it becoming overwhelming and allowing them to still be people that could help.
Thank you for bringing that image to us. I'd like to ask you, the organization, World Emunah, it started with daycares, and now the state is even funding support for trauma and for victims of trauma. How has this evolved to meet the new needs of Israel's society?
As I'm sure you know, the state funds to X%. The rest has to come from fundraising and the organization and people who care. Because, of course, we want to do more, not the minimum, you know? And in the daycare centers, the problem, as we were discussing before, is that the children are so affected that it's not business as usual. And let's not forget the regular day-to-day literally running to a mamad or a safe room, no matter how close it is, it's very disruptive and very frightening for the children. And these are things that we have to really excel at and deal with.
And adapt.
And adapt, right.
Thank you for sharing that with us. Mr. Leyb, I'd like to ask you some questions. You are an IDF reservist doing your service. You're also spending your time outside, off the field, dealing with the international community through social media activism. What is your biggest challenge today in representing the voice of Israel?
There are many challenges, both on and off the field. I think on the field, one of the biggest challenges for myself is going from military, army life back to civilian life and then back to military life. I mean, you think about it, one day you're fighting evil, you're fighting terror, and the next day you go back to your own life as if everything is supposed to be fine, and your surroundings don't know what it's like. You only experience this if you're in the IDF, if you're fighting terror. And I think that for IDF soldiers, the mental health system still isn't good. It's better than what it used to be, but you have a lot of IDF soldiers who are making this transition back and forth, and we're going to see the effects of it soon. I don't think that IDF soldiers are being taken care of enough. I think that the retreats and the treatment are only for IDF soldiers who are already at that PTSD stage, and that's from the military side. From the external side, I mean, we only have a certain amount of time here, but the world is blind. You know, you see what people are posting. As someone with a bit of a social media following, I see the messages that I get, and it's like, how can you be fighting in the IDF? How can you be supporting this genocidal regime? And it's like, I ask myself, is the world blind? Do they not see what's going on? Do they not see what we're trying to do and who we are and the morals and ethics of me as an IDF reservist and the rest of my team? But people are very quick to believe whatever their favorite influencer posts on social media. And that's it. They're gone. They're brainwashed. So I'm still trying to make a change, but with the spread of misinformation on social media, my job is much, much harder.
And you said with a bit of a following, you have some 50,000 followers on Instagram, is that right?
Yes, I do.
So you have more than 50,000 people that are viewing you and getting updated on what's going on. I'd like to move over to Lieutenant Colonel. Thank you for joining us today. I want to talk to you about resilience. In your experience, what steps need to be taken right now to build the national and social resilience here in Israel?
First, I want to say that sadly enough, we have a lot of events in the last years. You know, we had the COVID, and then we had the Russia-Ukraine war, which also we saw the Jews of the diaspora contributing to this situation. And since October 7th, we are experiencing, trauma that has no other, I would say, data to
compare
to. And I would say three things that are most important. First of all, is acting fast. We were there in Tkuma region 10 days after it happened. We had to deal with trust issues. We were the face of the government to these people. So being fast is most important things. By the way, we've studied this from another occasion in the world. The second thing is knowing how to collaborate. When you're talking about children, one of two children in the Gaza envelope region is suffering from sleeping problem. So the teacher meets him inside the classroom. So who's going to take care of it? Not the teacher, right? Maybe the welfare, because the parents need guidance, or maybe his physicians with medical treatment, because we need data that can see all the pictures. And the third thing is rather connecting to what you discussed before, Tema, is long-term planning. We have tons of beautiful organization, non-profitable organization who needs to know how to update their activities, how to build it ahead, and therefore the states need to ensure the budget It needs to ensure the budget for the people, for the civilians. They need to know that it's like a long way to go, and they need to know that in 5 years from now, no matter whose government's gonna be, they're gonna have their rights, they're gonna have their treatments, they're gonna have the resilience centers, they're gonna have teachers who know how to deal with trauma inside the schools. So these are the three: being fast, working together, and making a law that will establish and will ensure the rights for long term.
So I think it's great that you're bringing in the long-term vision. I'd also like to talk about the global vision. You are the former director of the Ministry of Aliyah. How do you see the global Jewish identity strengthening and working for the state of Israel? What do you think needs to be done, and how do you see it from your vantage point?
Well, I feel like we are renewing our vows. That's the way I feel. Okay, we were like two tribes. In the last 2 or 3 decades, we came apart. We didn't understand the diaspora. The Israelis didn't understand the diaspora didn't understand. We didn't understand why do they need to deal with interior issues like the cartel and the reform and the law of return. We didn't understand that. And October 7 was like really renewing the vows. We saw tons of people coming to work in agriculture, in the fields. You know, it was dangerous back then. We saw a lot of people wanting to volunteer and serve as soldiers. We see tons of application for Aliyah. Think about it, in this big time, you know, difficult time. People want to be a part, and we are coming together. It's not only money. I've heard about the supportive of the communities, but it's not only money, you know, it's the spirit. The money makes it easier for us and maybe helps being fast and being with high speed, not like the government really work. But I think that this is like one of the lights that we saw after the 7th of October. And I really hope that we can maintain it for many, many years, because that's the way to succeed, only together.
That's beautiful. It's to be able to see the light of the future being all together from outside Israel, inside Israel, and to really hold on to this, not during just times of trouble, but during the successful times as well, to come together.
I hope we will be able to do that.
Well, I'm sure with your help that we will be able to. Noy, I'd like to return to you to ask you about the ways that soldiers can receive support here in Israel. I know that as a social media advocate, you talk about not just using hashtags and what's important that's happening off screen. Can you tell me what's the real types of support that soldiers need right now?
Every soldier needs something different. Some people need to go and get a getaway in Israel and disconnect for a couple of days. Some people need to connect for a couple of days, whether it's spiritually or emotionally or physically. There are a lot of retreats that are specifically for soldiers who have PTSD. But what about the other ones who aren't there yet? The IDF, I do have to say that they do offer some therapy sessions on them. And I'll be honest with you, and I'm a proud IDF reservist, I'm a Zionist, I will always go to duty when I'm called. But the therapist that the IDF provides is like talking to a wall. The IDF soldiers need to go through whatever therapy it is, whether it's speaking to someone, whether it's going surfing and clearing their mind, which is proven to be very helpful to IDF soldiers. And the IDF just needs to do a better job, or maybe it's an outside organization, I don't know whose responsibility is, to understand what these soldiers need. Because if we aren't taking care of these soldiers right now, who have been going through crazy situation, whether they're 18 or 50 years old, doesn't matter what they are, this time is extreme. It's not normal. This is a very, very long war. If someone doesn't figure out what these soldiers need, then the next war, I don't know how many soldiers will be left to fight. People won't want to go to battle.
No, I have a question, which is, how can people learn what IDF soldiers really need?
Come to Israel, talk to them. There are many organizations that do help IDF soldiers. There are many people who are going out there and doing stuff. Not everyone can come to Israel, but there is enough online, whether you can donate your time financially. There are people who can provide these types of services to IDF soldiers. It's a bureaucracy and it's hard, but everyone, I think, the Jewish community is small. Speak to an IDF soldier. You can find one your way and help him or her.
Thank you. President Klausner, I would like to ask you about the word resilience.
Okay.
How do you define resilience?
Personally, it's very interesting. I think first, you have to recognize what you're going through. You have to look and say, oh, I'm scared. My life isn't in control anymore. I feel very fragile. And then you have to embrace it. Okay, what can I do with those feelings? I certainly don't want them to overwhelm me. I want them to build me. And what does that mean? It means I'm more empathetic. I'm more sympathetic. I'm motivated to help my people. Emunah was built on the foundation of Kol Yisrael Arevim Zeh Lazeh. And part of this strengthening oneself is understanding that we are all responsible for each other.
That brings me to ask you about the different communities. If we're all responsible for one another, but there are so many different types of communities with different types of needs, how does World Emunah combat that?
They don't combat it. They identify who they can help, and that's who they help. No organization can help across the board. Everyone has their specialty, but what we do is we started out with daycare centers. We started out with children's homes, pre-Holocaust, then post-Holocaust. Then we grew to daycare centers because we needed to help the mothers become independent and make a living. And we grew, and we have high schools and children's homes, and so now, when we look around, let's say before the war, what did we need? We have crisis centers for children who were, not only did they have to be taken out of their homes, but they couldn't even be part of a regular children's homes. They're in a crisis center. We created a healthy sexuality section because people in the hotels were being assaulted. We worked up a model for that.
That is so powerful and so disturbing, but we're so grateful that your organization is paying attention to those needs that maybe are not being heard or are being whispered. So thank you for opening up your ears. Last question for you, Lieutenant Colonel. I'd like for you to share with us how you define resilience as well and what your vision is for the future of our country right now as we go through this trauma.
So I think you're referring to community resilience, right? Because not the individual resilience. I would say that resilience is the ability to being able to prepare to another crisis, but being able all the same to picture the futures, to see how the future, our common future, is going to look like. What we did in Tkuma with these 46 communities, we understood that the power is coming from the local leadership. The power to build resilience and to lead resilience will always come from the bottom. You cannot tell someone, be strong, be strong. It doesn't work. So in order to do that, we let them have like a whole team. Someone dealt with the young adult, someone dealt with the young women, someone dealt with the kids. And they had like a really wide operation, how to do the things. We just gave them the tools. And lucky for us, 90% of the civilians are there already. All the fields are being worked at, all the vegetables, all the fruits, everything is being really, I would say, complete as it was before. But still we need to take care of, as I said before, of the long-term recovery. And I'm sure that resilience can do the work on that territory.
Thank you for your expertise. Thank you to everyone on the panel.
Thank you.
Thank you.